coverage on the ground. We start with Channel 2's Richard Elliott. And Richard, you confirmed agents seized.
Should be ashamed of you.
Is here on scene in getting information as to what
to dismiss a prosecutor if they were worried that
Madison has a court hearing next week, and his lawyers want to exclude video of the murder happening.
The Department of Justice cracking down on alleged healthcare fraud in LA County, calling it an epidemic.
And CBS actually ends up exposing, number one, it's an orchestrated international propaganda.
Words are not enough. It's time for action.
Renee Good, also killed by a federal officer in Minneapolis.
What's slipping out of control just as the new year is dawning? Sudden federal raids, northern streets lost in tear gas, gunshots ripping through everyday life, dirty money swelling until it's choking everything, and outside hands quietly pulling strings. It's all hitting fast, not giving anyone a chance to catch their breath. This isn't a bunch of random events. Order is cracking, truth is getting twisted, people's hearts are rocking like waves crashing over the shore. Those old warnings are echoing again, knocking hard in every moment, reminding us time doesn't stand still, and staying awake is a matter of survival. The story still has a dark corner that hasn't been lit up yet. And do you realize it's not just coincidence anymore? If faith still has a voice, leave a quiet, sacred word so we can hold on to hope together before we step deeper into whatever's waiting ahead. Now come with me. Let's go deeper and pull back the curtains, hiding the truth. We'll start right away with the first shocking event. FBI suddenly raids Fulton County election hub. Hunt for 2020 election fraud kicks off. On the 28th of January 2026, the quiet in Union City, Georgia, got shattered when hundreds of federal agents showed up out of nowhere at the Fulton County election hub. They sealed off the place and started loading up boxes of ballots from the 2020 election. No heads up, no big press conference, just sirens, body armor, and trucks ready to go. You could tell right away this wasn't some routine check. It felt like a direct hit on the heart of the big argument that split America for years. According to Fox News, the spot they hit was the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center, a modern building opened back in 2023, right on the edge of Atlanta. The search warrant came from Magistrate Judge Catherine M. Salinas. It let them take documents about how ballots were stored and handled. In just a few hours, hundreds of boxes with paper ballots, ballot images, voter lists, and provisional ballots got sealed and hauled onto trucks. This went on late into the night, and details of the warrant stayed under seal, not released to the public. This whole thing hits extra hard because of what's been going on lately. Not long before, Fulton County's DA Fani Willis got pulled from a related case over personal issues, which raised questions about how clean the whole legal process around election stuff really is. At the same time, the Trump administration kept signaling they were going to look again at the old doubts from 2020, saying big legal steps were coming soon. Fox News says this could be the opening move in a huge federal case like nothing we've seen before. Seeing agents carry out box after box lit a fire under the debate right away. Local officials sounded worried, saying this might go too far and hurt people's trust even more. On the other side, the Justice Department under Trump called it a needed step to hold people accountable, especially with all the talk lately about government agencies being weaponized. The two sides crashed head-on, and nobody's backing down. Right in the middle of all this fast-moving news, the Bible steps in like a way to make sense of it. Acts 5:1-11 tells the story of Ananias and Sapphira, who hid the truth and faced instant consequences. It reminds us that lies, no matter how well hidden, can't stand up to the light. Ananias, why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit? That question hits like a mirror on actions covered up by power and self-interest. Fox News reports that a lot of constitutional law experts say sealing the warrant shows how sensitive this case is. Some think it's needed to protect the investigation. Others warn it could make divisions worse if the results don't convince people. The tug-of-war between openness and keeping society steady is a tough one with no easy answer. Proverbs 11:1 lays it out plain. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. Put that next to the picture of sealed ballot boxes, and it stops being just an old saying. It becomes a straight-up challenge about fairness and honesty in decisions that shape the whole country's future. Political analysts point out that no matter what the investigation finds, the mental impact is already done. and can't be undone. Some folks see this as proof the system needs a full check from the ground up. Others worry it's setting a bad example for future elections. Suspicion is spreading wide, and the effects go way beyond just the courtroom. In all this, Matthew 24-24 sounds like a warning about clever deception in shaky times, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear, to deceive, if possible, even the elect. This verse doesn't pick sides on who's right or wrong, but it gives a way to see that truth in chaotic moments always gets hidden under layers of cover. Plenty of skeptical voices still say the whole thing is just a political hunt with no real proof, and it risks messing with fair process. Even so, hundreds of ballot boxes getting pulled out in a big operation like this has become a real truth bomb. It's forcing all of America to face questions that never got fully answered. The story pauses here, but those boxes sit behind sealed doors, waiting to be opened. What comes out when the seals break, and whether this legal wave brings America closer to the truth or deeper into division, is still an open question everyone's mind. The Charlie Kirk assassination. Hearing to exclude graphic video shocks the whole country. In September 2025, a long-range shot went through Charlie Kirk's neck, right in the middle of Utah Valley University's campus in Orem. It ended the life of one of America's most controversial political figures. That shot didn't just take down one man, it froze the whole public space and left a stunned feeling that lasted for months afterward. We enter this story with a cold, hard fact. Political violence has gone way beyond just words. It happened during a rally on the 10th of September 2025, while the crowd was still chanting slogans and security was supposed to have the area under control. The bullet came from a long distance, hit him in the neck in an instant, and dropped him right in front of hundreds of people watching. The accused gunman is Tyler Robinson, 22 years old. He was arrested later and faces serious charges, from aggravated murder to firearm discharge and tampering with evidence. According to reports, a hearing at the 4th District Court in Provo in January 2026 shocked the public all over again. The defense team asked to exclude the highly graphic crime scene video, saying the bloody images could hit jurors too hard emotionally and bias their judgment. That argument quickly put the courtroom in a tough spot between the right to a fair trial and the need to face the truth head-on. In the released investigation files, the video capturing the exact moment he was shot spread fast on social media before it got taken down. The prosecution says the video honestly shows how brutal the act was. The defense stresses it's not needed and wants the prosecutor excluded because of a conflict of interest. His daughter was at the rally. This fight pulls justice in two opposite directions, with each side claiming to protect the real principles. Criminal psychologists who looked at it say Robinson's actions show built-up hatred and a twisted view of his own role in our divided politics. Instead of seeing an opponent as a fellow human, the accused turned the victim into a symbol that had to be eliminated, a long slide from extreme ideas into real violence. It shows how thin the line is between strong belief and obsession, and how quickly it can break. At this point, the Bible doesn't come in to comfort, it comes to accuse. Genesis 4:1-16 tells the story of Cain killing Abel, where unchecked jealousy and anger led to the first murder in human history. The voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground isn't just judgment on Cain, it's an everlasting charge against violence born from hate. As the legal arguments go on, social media explodes with clashing opinions. Some try to explain the gunman's side by pointing to mental pressure, a heated environment, and all the hateful language out there. On the other side, plenty of voices curse him and demand the harshest punishment, seeing this as a sign of moral collapse. In between those extremes are more neutral takes, asking what kind of system let hate build up until someone pulled the trigger. 2 Timothy 3:1-5 describes difficult times when people become cruel, without self-control, and without love. Put that Bible passage next to today's arguments. It doesn't point fingers at one person, but it lays bare the spiritual atmosphere where violence gets fed by swollen egos and widespread numbness. Some legal watchers say excluding the graphic video might be necessary to keep the trial from being ruled by emotion. Others warn that shielding too much will hide the true nature of the crime. This debate reflects a deeper fear. Society is struggling to face violence without letting it come back in some other form. Matthew 24-9. 10 talks about persecution and betrayal in chaotic times, when people turn against each other over beliefs and positions. And in Revelation 6-4, the red horse, given power to take peace from the earth, sounds like a condemnation of this endless cycle of killing. This assassination, whether seen through a legal or social lens, has gone beyond one single crime. It has become a warning signal that political violence is crossing into a new level, where differences in views can quickly turn into targets to destroy. The crime scene video is still blocked in some proceedings, but Tyler Robinson's real motive and what fed it remains a hanging question waiting to be fully exposed. Crackdown on hospice fraud in LA. $3.5 billion ended up in mafia hands. $3.5 billion. In just a small area covering less than 4 city blocks in Los Angeles, the Medicare system was gutted with numbers that leave you stunned. In January 2026, the federal government made this public, and the question hit almost right away. How could a healthcare fraud scheme grow this huge without anyone noticing for years? According to official reports from CMS and federal oversight agencies, the hotspot was in San Fernando Valley, around Van Nuys, where 42 hospice facilities were legally registered on paper but had 0 real patients. The addresses were real, signs were up, paperwork got filed on time, but inside, the rooms sat empty. Medicare kept paying, month after month, for end-of-life care that never happened. The operation wasn't random. It was tightly organized. This network hired doctors to sign blank forms, recruited people to pose as patients, and built fake treatment records to pull federal money. Investigations showed more than 100,000 patient files got abused, while in reality, nobody received any care. The payments were broken into small pieces and moved around through multiple companies to hide the money trail. Things got clearer when individual cases started coming to light from 2024 to 2025. Some defendants, like Fichidjian and Srapian, got sentenced after being part of fraud schemes worth up to $16 million. At the same time, the number of hospices in that area jumped 7 times in a short period, an obvious red flag that auditors later admitted they ignored for too long. In the Bible, Matthew 21:12-13 says, Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He said to them, "It is written, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." When money takes over the original purpose, the collapse usually doesn't come with a bang. It rots quietly from the inside. Investigators from the Department of Justice and HHS OIG pointed out small but telling details. Signs in Russian-Armenian script, offices packed unusually close together, and paperwork that matched down to the exact same forms. The federal government even moved a Border Patrol commander who used to handle Minnesota over to California to step up the crackdown, showing just how serious this was. Acts 5:1-11 tells the story of Ananias and Sapphira, who lied about their offering and hid the truth, facing immediate consequences. The story isn't about size, it's about the heart. When deception becomes normal, it brings its own judgment. When the numbers came out, people split right away. Some blamed weak oversight. Others worried the healthcare system was being hijacked from within, and plenty felt straight-up anger toward those profiting off sick and dying people. At the same time, the media noted pushback. You can't paint an entire community with the fraud brush, and financial crime doesn't have an ethnic color. 1 Timothy 6-9, 10 warns, those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. When greed reaches an industrial scale, it doesn't just twist personal morals, it eats away at society's trust. With hundreds of agents reassigned and raids spreading, California is once again called the capital of healthcare fraud. James 5:1-6 says, "Now listen, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you." The question still hanging is, after Los Angeles, where else will this show up? Or is this just the tip of a much bigger iceberg? Network, far left funded by Singham. Insurgency against ICE from Shanghai. From Shanghai, a hidden flow of money goes back to the US, supporting actions that get called protests, but look more like organized and disciplined operations. Does hearing this give you chills? Neville Roy Singham, an American billionaire who's lived in Shanghai for years, is under investigation by US congressional committees over his ideological and financial ties. Public records show more than $20 million funneled through groups like the People's Forum in New York, PSL, and various alternative media channels. These funds don't just go to workshops or forums. They're said to connect directly to the big protests that broke out in Minneapolis early in 2026. The money trail leads to clear, organized structures. Investigation documents describe rapid response teams, instructions for surveillance and pressuring federal workers, plus encrypted chats on Signal. Before each hotspot, messages were prepped, roles were assigned, and the language used was highly inflammatory. Ephesians 6:12 says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world." When you look at how these networks operate, a lot of people feel what's happening goes way beyond normal protests, like there's an invisible layer of conflict behind the chaotic scenes. Federal law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, have started checks into possible pre-planning of violence based on timing and what was shared in those private channels. Some security experts call it coordinated insurgency, while others are more careful and stress that you can't paint everyone who marched with the same brush as the funding networks behind the scenes. Daniel 7 describes rising empires as beasts symbolizing power and ambition. The four great beasts are four kings that will rise from the earth. For many Bible analysts, this picture is often used to reflect on power systems that operate beyond national borders. On the other side, critics argue that these funds support legitimate social work, and funding doesn't mean controlling the actions. They say accusing like this can hurt free speech and hide real social problems. In response, counterintelligence experts warn that history shows foreign influence often starts with money and ideology. Revelation 13 talks about a system with wide-reaching influence. It made the whole world astonished and follow the beast. This passage gets brought up a lot when discussing invisible power structures that spread deep, crossing geographic and legal lines. Another layer of analysis questions the timing. Leaked conversations show preparations happened before the violence started, raising doubts about how spontaneous it really was. Do you think it's just coincidence, or signs of a plan set up ahead of time? 2 Peter 3:4 warns, "In the last days, scoffers will come, saying, 'Where is this coming?' he promised." For many Bible believers, growing skepticism and chaos often come with big shifts in history. As investigations keep widening and data from those encrypted channels gets decoded bit by bit, this story isn't over yet. If the financial and organizational links get clearly proven, what happens next to the networks behind it? And how will America face this challenge going forward? Allegations that Ilhan Omar laundered money through a fake winery called East Crew LLC. The contrast hits you right away with the numbers. A congresswoman, once known for growing up poor, is now listed with assets worth tens of millions of dollars. While the business in her name shows almost no signs of real activity, that one detail alone shocks a lot of people and makes them ask, what's really going on behind these financial records? The financial disclosure forms filed in 2023 and updated in May 2024 show a big jump in her reported net worth, with ESTCRU LLC in Santa Rosa, California, standing out. The company is described as a winery, but it started with only about $15,000 and later got valued at nearly $5 million. Reports say the business website shut down back in 2020. Social media accounts have no new posts. The contact phone is always busy, and Google Street View shows an empty spot at the address. The strange details keep coming when people dig into what used to be online about East Crew. The site called itself Memory Curators, but the links are broken. There's no info on wine products, no public sales records, and no sign of it at industry events. When you put these scattered pieces together, it raises questions about a financial setup that exists more on paper than in real life. Acts 5:1-11 tells the story of Ananias and Sapphira, who hid the truth about their money, and the Bible passage stresses the serious consequences of lying to the community. When people compare the two, many feel these old stories still speak to today's debates about transparency and honesty. Things get more complicated because Ilhan Omar's husband, Tim Mynett, has been named in lawsuits over alleged investor fraud in cannabis and wine projects. Some lawmakers and officials have called for clarity on whether these money flows connect to the welfare fraud scandals that shook the Somali community in Minnesota, along with claims of political cover at the state level. Proverbs 11:1 says, "The Lord hates dishonest scales, but accurate weights are pleasing to him." For many Bible readers, it's a reminder that imbalance in measuring value, whether money or morals, ends up breaking trust. On social media, reactions split hard in two directions. One side says business valuations can come from venture investments and future potential, not current sales. And Ilhan Omar has denied claims she's a multimillionaire. The other side sees the silence from these inactive assets as proof of a system using legal loopholes to build wealth. James 5:1-6 warns, "Come now, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you." People often quote this when talking about wealth tied to oppression and lack of accountability, especially for those in power. Investigations are reportedly under review by the DOJ and the House, while supporters urge waiting for official findings instead of rushing to judge. 1 Timothy 6:10 reminds us that the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, a verse still used to shine light on the tension between political ideals and personal gain. As the records stay open and the numbers keep getting checked, this story remains unresolved. If the suspicions turn out badly, what would the legal fallout be? And is this just one isolated case, or a sign of a bigger wave of corruption waiting to come out? 2 shootings of American citizens by ICE in Minneapolis spark outrage. 2 American citizens lost their lives in less than 3 weeks. Same city, both tied to ICE operations, and both deaths caught on video that spread fast across social media. Those cold facts raise a painful question. What's happening to the line between law enforcement and human life? And are we crossing a dangerous boundary without even realizing it? On the 7th of January 2026, Renee Good, 37, a mother of 3, was shot and killed in North Minneapolis while watching ICE activity in the neighborhood. According to Fox News and CNN, she was confirmed as a U.S. citizen, unarmed, and present during Operation Metro Surge, which had thousands of federal agents deployed. The shooting happened quickly amid the chaos, leaving a broken family and a stunned community behind. Matthew 24:6-8 talks about the birth pains of turbulent times, where wars and violence follow one after another as signs of deep unrest. Many believe what's happening in Minneapolis matches that exact state, with tensions rising day by day. Less than 3 weeks later, on the 24th of January 2026, Alex Pretty, 37, an ICU nurse who had served at a VA hospital, was shot multiple times near the Glamdal Donut shop on Nicollet Avenue. Fox News and CNN reports, along with video, show Pretty already pinned on the ground, pepper spray used, weapon taken away, but shots were still fired afterward. Those images shocked viewers because they raise questions about how necessary force was in a situation that seemed under control. Psalm 10 describes the cries of the oppressed when power becomes a tool to spread fear instead of protecting justice. This psalm gets mentioned a lot whenever communities feel helpless against the might of the state. After the 2 deaths, Minneapolis erupted in protests that went on for days. Tens of thousands took to the streets, in temperatures dropping to -29 degrees Fahrenheit. Memorials sprang up on street corners. And even some pastors were arrested at the airport while trying to stop the violence from getting worse. According to Fox News and CNN, the agents involved were placed on leave during an internal investigation, but that did little to calm the wave of anger. Matthew 24:9 warns of a time when people will be persecuted and handed over to death, not just for faith, but because hatred spreads between people. For many believers, these words ring as a reminder that violence can show up right in everyday life. Pushback came quickly from the government and supporters of law enforcement. They argued self-defense, saying the victims interfered with federal operations during high-tension moments. Some pointed out that decisions were made in split seconds, under real pressure and real danger, and can't be judged just by a few edited video clips. Revelation 6 speaks of seals being opened, including the image of those killed for justice, their cries for fairness rising from under the altar. For many Bible readers, this isn't just symbolic. It's a warning about the cost of unchecked violence. Still, others see a clear tipping point. 2 American citizens, 2 different situations, both ending the same way at the hands of state power, have sparked fear that individual lives are becoming more fragile than ever. Matthew 24:6 reminds us not to be alarmed by bad news, but it doesn't deny that violence is a sign of dangerous times. The story in Minneapolis isn't over. Talk of invoking the Insurrection Act has started showing up in political debates, and Minnesota's future faces an uncertain fork in the road. As anger keeps building, the open question remains: which path will society choose? Healing through justice and compassion, or sliding deeper into a cycle of confrontation with no one knowing where it stops? Protests and major violence in Minneapolis. Insurrection against ICE. The streets of Minneapolis were thick with tear gas, hotel windows shaking hard, sirens and bullhorns blaring over each other in the cold winter night. It created such a chaotic scene that people watching could hardly believe this was America. In the middle of the crowds pouring into the streets, you could feel the tension rising fast as order and anger crashed together with no space left in between. After shootings involving ICE, waves of protests broke out all across downtown in January 2026. Crowds rushed to the hotels where federal agents were staying. Some groups pushed at doors, threw water bottles and snowballs at security forces, while main roads were completely blocked off. On-the-ground counts showed that at times, protesters outnumbered police by 10 to 1, making crowd control extremely tough. Matthew 24:6-8 describes wars and rumors of wars, nation rising against nation, as a way to understand society when conflict spreads from global issues down to every neighborhood. A lot of folks went back to that passage when they saw the confrontations happening right here in their own country. The clashes went on for several nights in a row. Police and National Guard used tear gas and stun grenades to break up the crowds, while protest groups stayed organized with signal whistles, quick response teams, and encrypted messaging channels to track agent movements in real time. Makeshift tent camps and field kitchens went up in temperatures dropping below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, showing this wasn't just a quick outburst, it was a sustained campaign. Revelation 6-4 talks about the red horse given power to take peace from the earth and make people kill one another, often seen as a symbol of spreading violence. In the Minneapolis situation, many believe social peace is being drained away hour by hour. Security analysts pointed out signs of solid organization behind the movement, from logistics to messaging, with far-left groups and ICE Watch networks involved. Conservatives called it a form of insurrection, challenging federal authority, while the left side insisted most of it was peaceful protest against what they saw as abuse of power. The reality on the streets showed both pictures existing side by side, making the whole thing even more complicated. 2 Timothy 3-1-5 warns about perilous times when people become brutal, without self-control, and divided. Many pastors quoted this passage as a key to understanding a society that's losing its patience. Amid all the arguing, state and federal authorities kept adjusting their tactics, calling for calm while keeping security in place. Arrests happened here and there, but not enough to end the conflict completely. Each passing night just fueled more anger and distrust. We're watching a long, drawn-out tug-of-war where neither side is ready to back down easily. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the powers and dark forces, offering a deeper explanation for the unseen layers behind the visible violence. For many believers, it's a call to look beyond the immediate clashes and grasp the true nature of the conflict. Even though some say most of the marches stayed peaceful, the level of organization and pockets of violence were enough to sound a serious alarm. This organized chaos is seen as a major sign of instability, showing society stepping into its most explosive phase. As calls for cooling things down mix with threats of escalation, the Minneapolis story still ends with a big question mark. Will order be restored? Or is this just the opening act for even bigger storms ahead? 7 events have come and gone, like a series of shocks, each one stronger than the last. They don't stand alone. They pile up on each other to form a bigger picture of a very uneasy time. From power and money to violence and organized lies, it all adds up to a feeling that the world is entering a time of intense struggle, where the usual layers of stability are starting to crack. Matthew 24:6-8 describes this very clearly when it talks about labor pains, saying there will be wars, conflicts, violence, and earthquakes before something even greater comes. All these are the beginning of birth pains. When you put these 7 events side by side, you see that same rhythm repeating, faster, stronger, and harder to ignore. The scary part isn't just the individual events. It's the widespread sense of being lost. Justice gets stretched and pulled in arguments. Truth gets split apart by self-interest, and people's hearts get pushed around by fear and anger. In times like this, being awake isn't some abstract idea anymore. It's a matter of survival so we don't get swept away by the crowd. Matthew 24-42 reminds us, "Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come." Being awake here doesn't mean panic. It means keeping our spirit from falling asleep, keeping our conscience from getting hardened, and keeping our faith from being drowned out by all the noise of the world. In the middle of these rough waves, prayer becomes a quiet but solid anchor. When we stop to pray, to think things over, and to turn back to values deeper than power or money, even in the chaos, we can still find peace in our hearts. This is also the moment to ask ourselves what we're getting ready for in the time ahead, not just materially, but spiritually too. 1 Thessalonians 5-6 says, "So then, let us not be like others, who are asleep, but let us be awake and sober." Those words come across as a gentle but firm reminder that there's no more time to be indifferent or put off important decisions about our inner life. If there's a prayer in your heart, a worry you're carrying, or a thought you've never shared, feel free to leave it in the comments as a way to express your faith and connect with each other for support. If these thoughts help us see the bigger picture of our time more clearly, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future messages. Thank you so much for staying with me until this moment, and may peace cover us and our families in the days ahead. Amen.
A judge in Minnesota is ordering the acting head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement to appeal.
Hold restrictions on how law enforcement can respond.
President Trump says he's now sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota, and some Senate Democrats
getting essentially his day in court. And so the judge in this case is
CBS News. Top Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee have asked Justice Department officials to handle.
And good evening. We begin tonight with the fast-moving developments in Minneapolis after a protest.
Says officers were trying to arrest a suspect convicted of domestic assault.
What's really going on with America right now? Death threats popping up every day, the law clashing with power, and the streets right on the edge of riots. Do you feel like time is running out? Late January 2026, Minneapolis got hit hard, one thing after another. Hate exploding, lawsuits piling up, orders coming down, angry words flying, crowds closing in tight, warnings of force echoing through the freezing night. Everything's moving way too fast, way too harsh. No time for anyone to step back. Before we go any further, just say a quick prayer, like one last anchor in the storm that's opening up, okay? Amen. And now, so you don't have to wait long, let's jump right in with death threats against ICE agents jumped 80% in just a few weeks, dragging their families into a swamp of violence. "You fascist pig! Kill yourself! I hope your wife dies screaming." Those exact words came in voicemails sent to ICE agents' phones in Minneapolis. No metaphors, no hints, just plain calls for violence. When you read or hear those messages, you're seeing the kind of talk the Bible described a long time ago. Words no longer held back by conscience or any fear of what's holy. From January 24 to 27, 2026, after the shootings that killed American citizens Alex Preddy and Renee Good, DHS recorded an 80% increase in death threats aimed at ICE agents, with assaults up 300% compared to the same time period. The numbers show how quickly the hatred is rising, not just in how many, but in how intense it is. 2 Timothy 3:1-3 describes this exact situation. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be abusive without love. The passage isn't about one specific group. It's about the general state of society when moral restraint breaks down. On the 26th of January 2026, DHS released some sample voicemails to show how bad it has gotten. The content doesn't stop at personal insults. It goes straight to cursing families, calling for suicide, and threatening to hunt people down. Doxing comes along with it, forcing many families to change their everyday routines. We see a clear parallel here with Matthew 24:9, where the prophecy points to rising persecution and hatred. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. The focus of the verse isn't on any particular label. It's on hatred becoming a group reflex. According to Fox News, security officials say the tense political climate has let violent language spread more easily. That view got quick pushback online. Some folks say the 80% figure is exaggerated since it started from a very low number. Others argue that no matter how you figure the percentage, threatening innocent families has gone way beyond policy arguments. 2 Timothy 3:12 adds an important point. In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. The verse doesn't predict every detail, but it lays out a rule. Pressure and opposition will grow when society hits unstable times. What's worth noting is that the Bible doesn't describe hatred as some random outburst, but as the result of a chain of moral decline. 2 Timothy 3 lists traits: lovers of themselves, boastful, abusive in speech, as signs that show up together. When we look at the current data, we don't need to put religious labels on anyone to see the similar patterns of behavior. Many people push back against making this connection, saying quoting the Bible might hide the real social and political factors. Still, as a kind of warning, the Bible doesn't replace modern analysis. It puts it in a longer moral frame. Matthew 24 isn't meant to explain policy details. It shows the spiritual direction humanity takes when conflicts rise and hearts grow hard. Looking back at the stream of threatening voicemails, the huge spike in numbers, and the arguments around them, we see one clear point: the normalizing of calls for violence. The Bible has warned about this state for a long time, not as a detailed forecast, but as a caution about what happens when society loses its moral boundaries. The question left hanging isn't who's right or wrong in the political debate, but whether these curses will stay just words, or if they're only the start of a deeper escalation where law and violence will collide head-on in the days ahead. Legal war breaks out. Judge orders ICE director to show up in Minneapolis court. The tension isn't just on the streets anymore. It's right in the courtroom. Legal papers are getting signed fast, summons are going out, and big titles are facing off head-to-head. Things in Minnesota have shifted to full alert mode. We're seeing a moment where the law isn't just settling a dispute, it's becoming the battlefield itself. On the 12th of January, 2026, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, along with the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, filed a lawsuit to stop Operation Metro Surge, the big federal immigration crackdown that started back in December 2025. This case isn't only about one program. It's questioning where the line is between state power and federal power, especially with all the violence and protests pulling society apart. The big moment came when federal judge Patrick J. Schiltz ordered the ICE director to appear in person at the Minneapolis courthouse on the 30th of January 2026, or face possible contempt of court. This is a rare, strong move that shows the courts are ready to step deep into the fight with the executive branch. Wisconsin's Attorney General quickly jumped in to help, spreading the conflict beyond just one state. CNN covered it and said constitutional law experts call this one of the most intense power clashes over immigration policy in years. Supporters of the Trump administration say the lawsuit is obstruction of justice, blocking federal law enforcement. The other side says it's about protecting local authority and citizens' rights. You can feel the tug-of-war. Both sides quote the law, but they end up in completely opposite places. In all this, the Bible doesn't come in as judgment, but as a way to understand the repeating pattern of power. John 18:37-38 records the talk between Jesus and Pilate. "You are a king, then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. What is truth?" Pilate asked. "That question, what is truth?" echoes from an ancient courtroom, mirroring the moral fog when political and legal power clash without common ground. The similarity isn't in the people, but in the setup. One side holds the power to judge, the other gets summoned, and both stand in a space where truth is being fought over. We see that picture again as the judge, attorney general, and federal agency all claim their actions are legal, needed, and right. Then John 19:10-11 goes further. Don't you realize I have power to free you or to crucify you? Jesus answered, you would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Bible scholars see this as a reminder that all power, no matter how strong, has limits. Applied today, it explains why earthly systems often hit dead ends. Each side believes their power is the highest. Some political experts say conflicts like this are just a natural result of America's federal system, where powers overlap. Others warn that when disputes heat up during social unrest, courts can end up adding fuel to street tensions. Revelation 13:7 gets mentioned as a symbolic picture. It was given power to wage war and to conquer them. Not to say it's the same situation, but to capture the feeling that power, when pushed to the edge, tends to expand and crash into itself. From a neutral view, the lawsuit and the summons are legal steps within the U.S. Constitution. But happening amid rising threats of violence and spreading protests, their impact goes way beyond the courtroom. We're not just watching a lawsuit, we're seeing a test of whether the legal system can handle the pressure from society. The legal chaos between federal and local isn't the end by itself, but it's a sign of that nation against nation state mentioned in prophetic texts. When the law becomes the front line, the consequences aren't limited to files and rulings anymore. The 30th of January 2026 is coming up fast. That court hearing could close the dispute with solid legal reasoning, or it could spark a whole new chain of reactions out on the streets. The open question isn't who wins the case, but whether the coming ruling will cool things down or accidentally add more fire to a society already on the edge of instability. Trump sent Tom Homan to Minneapolis right away that night. Things changed fast after he called Walz and Frey. A decision from Washington turned everything around in just a few hours. It put the city right in the middle of a new showdown between the federal government and local leaders. The order came down quick and clear. No beating around the bush. Tension shot up right away once everyone realized this wasn't just testing the waters anymore. It was the real thing on the ground. After phone calls on the 26th of January 2026, President Donald Trump decided to send Tom Homan to Minneapolis on the 27th of January 2026, taking over the coordination role from before. The meeting happened that same day with Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey at the Street Paul Capitol, plus one other spot that wasn't made public. The message from the White House was straight. Just give us your criminals. It all goes away. Minneapolis stuck to their guns. They weren't changing the city's current sanctuary policy. On the surface, it's about public safety. Underneath, it's heavy political pressure piling up. Sending in someone known for being tough shows, Washington wants to reset how things work together and test how far local power really goes. You have to wonder what happens when two opposite approaches have to sit down at the same table, especially when trust is already running thin. Nehemiah 2:17-18 talks about a city in ruins, with people against it. Then the call goes out in front of everyone. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. It's the picture of a leader stepping into the mess, choosing to act instead of waiting. It reminds you how tough decisions often come when pressure keeps building. Policy experts say sending Homan is a strong signal meant to force the local side to respond with real action. Some think this approach could bring short-term order if they work out the details, but it also risks making the divide deeper if both sides see authority differently. The fast pace of decisions leaves less room for give and take. Nehemiah 4:14 describes a moment when fear is spreading. Then the reminder comes to steady everyone before the fight. Don't be afraid of them. Remember, the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families. The passage shows power struggles often come with emotional pressure, and choosing to stand firm or back down both leave long-lasting effects. In the meeting, the city side made it clear they won't change the protection principles they've already stated. That creates a real challenge: how to keep things safe without breaking the local legal foundation. Some security analysts warn that stubbornness on both sides could push the tension into other parts of the justice and government systems. Nehemiah 6-9 mentions tactics meant to scare the leader and wear him down. Then it ends with a prayer for strength to keep going. They were all trying to frighten us, but I prayed, "Now strengthen my hands." This line suggests that when pressure ramps up, it's not just about winning or losing. It's about staying steady in the middle of all the noise. These two parallel ways of seeing things show a deep split in how people view policy. Every decision gets judged through the lens of power and legitimacy. Matthew 24-7 talks about a time of division with the image kingdom against kingdom, hinting at conflict that keeps growing, not just between communities, but inside power structures too. Applied to today, this isn't about predicting the end. It's about the pattern. Long, drawn-out clashes often open the door to a chain of hard-to-predict results. The meeting was called productive, but the real test will come from what happens next. Will this move create the quiet space needed to rebuild cooperation, or is it just a short calm before a bigger wave hits? The answer will show itself when decisions move from the meeting room out into the real world. Walls compares ICE to Holocaust with Anne Frank, sparking wave of outrage. A shocking statement shakes up national opinion. On January 27, 2026, right on Holocaust Remembrance Day, Governor Tim Walz made a comparison that blew up the political scene in just hours, triggering fierce backlash from all sides. Hearing those words, folks might wonder what boundaries are getting crossed in public debates. In the midst of rising tensions around immigration policy and ICE operations, Walz said kids in Minnesota are hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside, and compared that fear to Anne Frank's situation. The words came out right on the Remembrance Day, ramping up the emotional impact and turning a political remark into a hot ethical issue. From news sites, just hours after the statement, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum issued a strong condemnation, calling the comparison deeply offensive and accusing it of using the Holocaust tragedy for political gain. Around the same time, the Trump administration's anti-Semitism envoy shot back that Anne Frank was in Amsterdam legally, pointing out the basic differences in historical and legal context. Matthew 24-11 warns about the power of misleading words in troubled times, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. This Bible verse focuses on how words can be used to steer collective emotions, especially when society's tense and easy to rile up. Public reaction data shows clear divisions. From news sites, social platforms logged hundreds of thousands of comments in the first 24 hours, with two sharply opposing views. One side sees the statement as an insult to historical memory, the other as a real description of fear in immigrant communities facing enforcement campaigns. Matthew 24-24 expands on this picture when it talks about the power to deceive with shocking messages. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Here, the Bible's role isn't to make political judgments, but to remind us of the temptation in extreme comparisons. Media analysts say linking a current issue to Holocaust symbols grabs instant attention, but it also knocks the discussion off a rational track. When Anne Frank's image gets pulled into policy debates, the focus shifts from arguments to emotional reactions, shrinking the space for real dialogue fast. From news sites, some Jewish organizations and history scholars spoke out, stressing that the Holocaust is unique in scale and meaning and can't be used as a regular political metaphor. This argument draws on historical data: 6 million Jews killed, plus millions more victims in an organized genocide like nothing else. 2 Peter 2:1 gives a direct warning about misleading messages in the community. But there were also false prophets among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you. Placed next to the current debate, this Bible verse reads like a moral charge against twisting historical truth. Walz's supporters argue he didn't mean to compare scale or nature, but just to describe the real fear kids in immigrant families feel. They say the strong backlash is overshadowing the core issue of widespread unease in communities, as noted in recent social reports. Still, the debate doesn't stop at personal intent. The problem's in the fallout from words spoken from a high-power position in the state. Using humanity's painful memories for today's arguments is seen as a sign of declining public moral standards, especially in a society already deeply divided. Matthew 24:11 and 24:24, along with 2 Peter 2:1, when put together, form a chain of warnings about times when words can become tools for division stronger than any policy. They don't target specific people, but point to a rule. When truth gets bent to serve a purpose, the consequences spread beyond control. The open question is whether this statement will fade like a short media storm, or keep widening the social cracks that are already there. If words keep getting pushed to extremes, where does the cycle of hate stop? Those agitator protests against ICE are heating up, and experts predict more riots as the weather gets warmer. Minneapolis streets are echoing with angry chants, metal barriers shaking, police lights flashing blue and red through the bitter cold night. The protests aimed at ICE aren't peaceful anymore. They've turned chaotic and super tense, spreading fast from downtown out to nearby areas, leaving everyone feeling on edge across the city. In the last days of January, crowds are showing up more often and stronger, with harsher slogans and more face-to-face clashes with police. A lot of streets are blocked off for now, shop windows boarded up, government buildings on high alert. You can really sense the tight atmosphere. Every step feels like it could spark a fight. Reports say some groups tagged as agitators came better prepared for long standoffs, with homemade shields, helmets, and supply spots scattered around. Federal security folks have talked about possible outside funding and organized planning, which makes violence more likely when the crowd gets really fired up. Matthew 24:6-7 gives an early heads up about troubles like this. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Put in today's American streets, those rumors of wars aren't off at some distant border. They're right in our neighborhoods. Julio Rosa, who wrote Fiery but Mostly Peaceful, said on Fox News on the 27th of January 2026 that he expects clashes to get worse when it warms up. His take is that once temps climb above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, more folks come out, protests last longer, and the odds of deadly encounters go way up, especially in big cities like Chicago and Los Angeles. Security reviews point out that winter has been like a natural break on street violence. As snow melts and it gets warmer, those calming factors fade, letting months of built-up grudges come out. We're watching a shift from quiet tension to the real chance of big, open confrontations. Revelation 6-4 paints a strong picture of peace being taken away. Then, another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. Folks often point to this verse as a warning about times when violence flares up from nothing more than built-up hate. Not everybody sees it that way. Plenty of civil rights folks stress that protesting is a real right to free speech, protected by the Constitution, and slapping the riot label on every gathering is a risky oversimplification. They say most people there don't want trouble, and only a small extreme group pushes things too far. Matthew 24:6 keeps stressing to stay level-headed. Sane. Right now, the picture shows an uncertain summer starting to take shape. These furious protests aren't slowing down. while the sparks for violence are lining up, just waiting for the right moment. When the weather turns, winter's fragile calm could give way to something much rougher, where peace feels like a real luxury. Issued an order to disperse and threatened force across Minneapolis. The decisions came down hard and fast that night. Short, sharp, cold, with no room to back off. The dispersal order was read out loud over loudspeakers, along with a warning that tear gas and less lethal devices would be used if the crowd didn't leave. At that moment, you didn't have to imagine much to feel the pressure tightening around every breath on the streets of Minneapolis. The steady voice of the security forces cut through the biting cold, stressing that this was a public safety order taking effect right away near the Green Sleep Number store. The warning was clear. Enforcement could include chemical agents and less lethal devices. No emotional words, no long back and forth, just straight commands and a countdown. On the ground, reactions split two ways. Some people quietly slipped away, while others kept chanting, clapping, and stomping their feet in defiance. Tension shot up fast as the gap between police and the crowd shrank. The flashing lights from patrol cars bounced off the wet, cold pavement, making everything feel heavier and longer. Exodus 5:6-9 records a similar decision in terms of raw power. That same day, Pharaoh gave this order: make the people work harder so that they keep working and pay no attention to lies. In the Bible, Pharaoh's command wasn't about talking things out. It was about control and suppression, pushing the conflict straight into face-to-face confrontation. According to local public safety reports, the dispersal order came after hours of watching the risk climb, when the crowd size went beyond the limit and signs of physical standoff appeared. The reasons they gave included the danger of injury to protesters, law enforcement, and nearby property. Everything was laid out in technical, cold, exact language. In that setting, using stronger measures was described as the last step to restore order. Opponents say the line between keeping people safe and cracking down on peaceful assembly is getting blurred. Still, officials insist the order follows current laws and standard urban security procedures. Exodus 14:13 offers another view when facing power and fear. Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. In the Exodus story, pressure from worldly authority hits its peak right before everything shifts, turning a moment of being cornered into the start of a major turning point. Crowd control experts point out that announcing the possible use of chemical agents is often more about psychological deterrence than immediate action. But once the order is read and time runs out, even small movements can be seen as resistance. That's the most dangerous part of situations like this. From a biblical angle, tough decisions by earthly power are often seen as tests, forcing people to choose between fear and faith. Exodus 5 shows that suppression doesn't kill the conflict, it just pushes it into a tighter, more intense form, setting up a bigger showdown ahead. Protesters argue that threatening force, even if called less lethal, still creates a coercive atmosphere and chips away at civil rights. Meanwhile, security forces stress their duty to stop violence from spreading, especially once agitators show up in the crowd. Exodus 14:13 isn't just about rescue. It also hints that the heaviest pressure usually comes right before a historic shift. When power clamps down hard, conflict doesn't vanish. It waits to erupt in a different, fiercer, harder to control way. The picture right now shows a clear escalation in how protests are handled. Quick orders, hard language, and readiness to use strong measures. Many analysts see this as a sign of a tighter control cycle, where security comes before dialogue. The big question still hanging is what the crowd does next. With the order given and the line drawn, will compliance cool things down, or will this very pressure push the situation past the point of no return? The protest outside the hotel rang out with shouts of "Freedom of speech!" Outside the Maple Grove Hotel, a crowd gathered in the dark night, Their chants echoed off the windows, while police lights swept across angry, tense faces. The air felt thick with yelling, car horns, and the sound of stomping feet. You could sense how thin the line was between a protest and real violence. It was stretched dangerously tight. On the night of the 26th of January, 2026, hundreds of people came together around the hotel area because they believed Commander Bovino was inside. The chant, "Freedom of Speech," kept going, mixed with shouts of, "Nobody is resisting." It created a wild, hard-to-control mix of noise. There was no room left for talking, just raw sound and emotion clashing. Police quickly told the crowd to step back about 3 feet to set up a safety zone. When not everyone listened right away, the officers started closing in, step by step, forming a kettling circle. The move was fast and firm, trapping the crowd both physically and mentally. Acts 19:28-29 describes something similar in Ephesus. The city was thrown into an uproar, and they rushed together into the theater. In the Bible, the crowd didn't need one clear reason to get mad. Once the feeling spread, order was swept away in seconds. Once the kettling circle was complete, arrests began in small groups. Some people clapped and played music as a kind of challenge, while others looked confused and tried to back away but couldn't find a way out. Tension rose in heavy silence, broken only by scattered shouts. Acts 19:32 paints the real nature of crowd chaos. The assembly was in confusion. Some were shouting one thing, some another. This Bible passage doesn't paint heroes or villains. It just shows the raw truth of disorder when group emotion takes over reason. Supporters of the protest say it was a peaceful action that got cracked down on too hard. They argue that kettling and arresting dozens of people only made people more upset instead of calming things down. On the other side, security says the lockdown was needed to stop violence from spreading, especially since the crowd wouldn't step back as asked. In this flood of information, truth gets broken into pieces, with each side holding its own version. That very split makes crowds easier to lead, because feelings take the place of full understanding. This pattern isn't new in Bible history. Acts 19 shows the crowd in Ephesus turning against Paul without fully knowing what they were against. Yet their anger was strong enough to throw the whole city into chaos. The Bible doesn't just tell old stories. It warns us about this human tendency when we lack a solid spiritual anchor. Amid the shouts of "Who are you serving?" right at the hotel entrance, that question goes beyond local politics or power. It reaches deeper into faith and values, forcing each person to face their own inner choice in the middle of outside chaos. Luke 21:25-6 talks about distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. These words are often seen as a picture of a troubled world where nations stay confused for a long time, with no shared foundation to cool down conflicts. Sociologists point out that when symbols, slogans, and fears mix together, crowds can quickly shift from expressing themselves to confronting others. In that setting, strong measures usually only handle the surface, while the real roots of unrest keep smoldering, waiting for the next spark. Here, the Bible doesn't come as a quick judgment, but as a staying awake and aware. In the middle of crowd chaos, the Bible reminds us that we're lost. It's whether people will find that anchor again before the next swirl of chaos comes. Here are the 7 signs put together, not to scare anyone, but to help put all these observations into a bigger picture that makes sense. When you look at them side by side, a familiar pattern shows up: spreading unrest, fragile order, and people feeling more and more lost about what's coming next. The Bible speaks plainly about this in Matthew 24:3-8. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. These signs don't stand alone. They come one after another like warning signals. When you place those 7 signs next to the opening of the seals in Revelation 6:1-8, the connection becomes even clearer. It describes a chain of events that directly hit peace, food supply, and human life. I looked, and there before me was a white horse. then a red horse that took peace from the earth, a black horse with scales for measuring grain, and a pale horse named Death. The way Scripture describes it isn't pointing to just one single moment. It paints a repeating, intensifying process. What's important to notice is that the Bible doesn't push panic, just the opposite. Matthew 24:6 says, "See to it that you are not alarmed." When you view these 7 signs through that lens, they become an invitation to think clearly and calmly. You're not forced to believe anything right away. You're simply asked to compare, reflect, and ask yourself where you stand in all this. From that viewpoint, the real focus isn't on trying to guess the day or the hour. Matthew 24:36 makes it very plain, but about that day or hour no one knows. The heart of the matter is inner preparation. Repentance isn't about being terrified of punishment. It's about turning back to what is right, changing direction, and living with more responsibility toward your faith, toward others, and toward yourself. If these signs cause you to pause and think, let that quiet moment lead you to prayer. You're welcome to leave a short prayer or a sincere thought in the comments below, as a simple way to mark that you've taken this seriously. We're not walking this path alone, and every honest word shared can encourage someone else. If this message was helpful to you, please give it a like, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's next. The goal in spreading it isn't to create worry, but to give more people a calm chance to reflect and stay awake. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I pray that you and your family stay in peace and stand strong in faith. Amen.
Liz, how about this news that President Trump is sending Tom Homan there? Is that welcome?
In a Truth Social post, Trump said he had a good call with Governor Tim Walz and appeared
moments before Alex Preddy was shot and killed by Border Patrol. Accounts of what happened. A federal immigration officer shooting a 37-year-old man in Minneapolis. Family
pull these 3,000 untrained agents out of Minnesota before they kill another person.
Gun that looked like Preddy's. Then Preddy is shot.
Launched a criminal investigation into Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor.
Overnight, they were trying to violently break into that hotel because...
What's really going on when a city suddenly explodes from the inside? In just a few short days, order falls apart. Streets fill with tear gas and smoke. Screams tear through the night, and violence spills out like a broken dam. Power clashes with power. Guns get stolen, blood is spilled in places that used to feel safe, and the future gets blurrier, hour by hour, minute by minute, as if time itself is being squeezed tight. Investigations come fast and furious. Urgent orders from the very top. Waves of anger spread quickly. Huge amounts of money get dragged out of the shadows. Everything happens so fast, so urgent, that nobody has time to catch their breath. Do you think this is just random chaos? Or is it a sign of something much bigger? There are questions we can't avoid, and gaps that force us to look deeper into what's really behind all this. Stay with me, because the next part will show an even more frightening picture. If worry is rising in your heart, leave a prayer in the comments as a way to express your faith. And now, let's get right to the event that's been shaking the United States these past few days. Trump has moved to send Tom Homan right away to Minnesota to enforce the law. On January 20, 2026, a short announcement from Washington put the whole state of Minnesota on high alert. President Donald Trump said he was sending Tom Homan, the border czar, to take direct command of ICE operations in the state. The statement was straight to the point, no delay, and it came with a clear warning. He might use the Insurrection Act if order keeps slipping away. That made it plain this isn't just another policy argument anymore, it's the federal government stepping in for real. Before this decision came down, Minnesota had already been shaken by big immigration sweeps. Thousands of ICE agents were sent in quickly, checkpoints popped up everywhere, and the number of people detained went up fast, day after day. Fox News reported that in less than 2 weeks, arrests tied to illegal immigration shot way up. That sparked strong pushback spreading from neighborhoods to city halls, and tension covered the whole state. At the same time, a quiet but serious legal move was made. On January 17, the U.S. Department of Justice issued subpoenas to Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. They face accusations of blocking federal law enforcement through their public statements and orders. The news poured fuel on the fire because it put state leaders right in the middle of an investigation while the streets were already boiling. In all this, Tom Homan shows up not just as a security official, but as a symbol of tough federal action. He led ICE during President Trump's first term and was known for no-nonsense raids and direct leadership. Coming back now, reporting straight to the president, makes it clear this isn't a test run. It's a calculated step to restore order, whatever it takes. Public reactions split fast and hard. Some folks say this is needed when federal law gets openly challenged. Others worry it could lead to bigger clashes between the government and regular people. Debates filled the news, and social media blew up by the hour. You could feel the unease growing as people realized one executive decision might bring consequences no one saw coming. In the middle of all these piled-up events, the Bible records a thought-provoking example of how power gets used in chaotic times. Isaiah 45:1 talks about Cyrus, the king of Persia, with these words, "The Lord says to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have grasped, to subdue nations before him." This man wasn't part of God's chosen people, yet he was placed in a key role during a major turning point in history. Isaiah 45:4 explains the reason for that choice. "For the sake of my servant Jacob, and Israel my chosen, I call you by your name. I name you, though you do not know me." These verses show that sometimes a tool is used not because it's perfect, but because the timing is right to carry out a bigger purpose. And Isaiah 45:13 makes it even clearer. "I have stirred him up in righteousness, and I will make all his ways level. He shall build my city and set my exiles free, not for price or reward, says the Lord of hosts." When people look at these words next to what's happening in Minnesota right now, a lot of them start wondering about the line between justice, power, and outside intervention when society gets chaotic. Right now, the decision to send Tom Homan to Minnesota is still sending shockwaves with no sign of stopping. The operations keep going, the arguments haven't cooled off, and the cover over long-standing problems is slowly being pulled back. When someone with that kind of power steps into the storm like this, what's still unknown isn't just how the raids turn out, it's what other truths might come out as this story keeps unfolding. The shooting of Alex Preddy, a sign of violence in the last days. One shot in the middle of a busy street, one person falls, and the fragile order of society gets torn apart in just a few seconds. This isn't just regular news anymore. It's a hard wake-up call that forces people to face reality. When violence happens right out in the open in broad daylight, no one can pretend things are still under control. On the 24th of January 2026, Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis became the center of heartbreak. Alex Jeffrey Preddy, 37 years old,